From Indianapolis, with an eye on every corner of Indiana, this is IBJ Media's Inside Indiana Business with Gerry Dick. Presented by Ice Miller and Indiana University.
State lawmakers getting down to business. What's on the agenda and how will it impact Hoosiers? Plus,
as part of your care team, we'll have a virtual nurse with us.
Hoosier bedside nurses getting an assist from their colleagues in the virtual world. How it could be a remedy to cure the nursing shortage. And
it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Indiana's fast-growing footprint in the e-commerce space. What it means for consumers, workers, and businesses during the holiday shopping season.
Listening once again with candy canes and silver lanes aglow.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. Hoosier lawmakers getting down to business. Gathering this week for the ceremonial organization day to kick off the 2023 legislative session and also swear in members for the 123rd General Assembly. They have a big task at hand, writing a new two-year state budget. Now, in July, the state ended its fiscal year with $6.1 billion in reserves. Plenty of big issues will be vying for funding this session, with big implications for the future of the state's economy. Among the biggest, workforce, education, and health care. They'll all be hotly debated topics. And there's the possibility that social issues could once again be on the agenda. To make some sense of it all, I'm pleased to be joined, as always, by IndyPolitics.org publisher Abdul-Hakim Shabazz. Abdul, welcome to the show.
Always good to be here, my friend.
Lots of issues we can talk about, but everything will be overshadowed, I guess, by the budget and debate on where to spend money.
Exactly. Indiana has a lot of financial obligations that has to deal with already. Also, potentially some new obligations. For example, the governor's healthcare commission recently unveiled a plan spending about $250 million annually to address Hoosier healthcare costs and build up our healthcare infrastructure. Lawmakers are a little skeptical about whether the state really needs that much money, so that'll be a big issue. Obviously, education funding will be an issue. Paying down Indiana's debt, which once again frees up more money for more programs as well. So lots of budgetary issues. I'll be out there. You
mentioned education, and I know you had a conversation at the Statehouse this week. Talking about, quote unquote, rethinking K-12 education. What did you make of that?
Yes, it's interesting because it's all part of sort of the workforce development situation that Indiana finds itself in. In addition to attracting new talent and keeping talent, we also have to sort of build up our workforce because, as you know as well as anyone, we have these major big job announcements popping up all over the place, high tech, high skill, high wages, but we don't necessarily have the workforce to fill those positions. So I know that's one thing that a lot of lawmakers are going to be looking at, sort of rethinking that K through 12 model, and also bringing the business community, getting the business community a lot more involved as well with internships and certifications and that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly lawmakers unveil to revamp K through 12 education, but they're sort of rethinking that. Also, they want to rethink higher ed. Also, basically, higher ed does seem to have the perception that higher ed doesn't have the value that it used to. They want to bring higher ed into the conversation and talk to them as well.
Yeah, we talk about workforce because, as you say, it is such a huge issue. There's a lot of talk that Intel going to Ohio with that big $20 billion investment, that workforce may have kept Indiana from getting that. Do you sense that lawmakers feel a sense of urgency to deal with that workforce issue?
Yes, I think so. And this year, more than ever, like I said, we got money in the bank, so that's not necessarily a big issue. We got a healthcare cost that had to be addressed, but also that workforce development is important for Indiana, not just for this year, but for 15, 10, 20 years down the road. And it's good to see lawmakers start doing some long-term thing like, hey, what do we want the state to look like, say, in 2030? And so by skilled up that workforce now, it goes a long way to solving those issues and alleviate those problems down the road.
Okay, you mentioned healthcare costs, the health of Hoosiers. Expect another push to increase the cigarette tax?
Yes, there will be. I know the House has passed a couple of them, so that's going to be on the Senate side of things. We don't know what the new caucus, where they are yet on the cigarette tax. Like I said earlier this week at a legislative panel, Senator Bray, who's the head of the Senate, said we have to talk to his caucus and see sort of where they are. But if past performance is indicative of future earnings, it's not likely.
As we wrap up, Abdul, as you look at any social issues, certainly abortion has been a hot topic, hot button issue. Do you anticipate social issues could creep into the conversation?
That's always possible. I don't think the abortion issues. I think the abortion is going to stay pat for right now, particularly with the Supreme Court hearing arguments, making a decision later in the spring. I think from that perspective, things will be fine with it. But it's the Indiana General Assembly. There are always these social issues that pop up. The question is, do they get a hearing, and do they do what I call the February surprise, and sort of suck up all the oxygen, nitrogen, and uranium-236 out of the room? That, my friend, still remains to be seen. All
right, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, as always, busy time of year for you. I know you're looking forward to it, and we'll be checking in with you throughout the session. Thanks.
I never knew a reporter could be so happy, my friend.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Well, another issue to keep an eye on at the Indiana Statehouse this session, the possibility of legalizing marijuana in Indiana. Over the summer, a legislative committee began studying the pros and cons of joining 21 other states that have legalized marijuana use. It's big business. Neighboring states like Illinois and Michigan, where pot sales are legal, raked in $600 million in tax revenues last year. 21 states have legalized marijuana. Indiana, one that has not. Well, another slam dunk for Indianapolis, because the Circle City has been chosen to host the 2029 NCAA Men's Final Four. It will be Indy's 10th time hosting the marquee event. The 29 Men's Final Four scheduled for March 31 and through April 2. Indiana Sports Corporation will partner with host institutions, the Horizon League and IUPUI, for the 2026 and 2029 Men's Final Fours. And the IBJ reporting the NCAA Women's Final Four will return to Indy in 2028. The Division I Women's Final Four games are expected to be played at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The city last hosted the Women's Final Four in 2016. The 28 games will mark the fourth time Indy has hosted the women's event. It also hosted the Women's Final Four in 2005 and 2011. Well, think about what it would be like to take over a global pharmaceutical company just as patents were coming to an end on key drugs worth billions in revenue, and the economy was beginning to tank. Well, John LECHLEITER knows full well about that. He became CEO of Indianapolis-based Eli Lilly and Company in 2008, a time when patent protection was expiring on Lilly's 4 blockbuster drugs and the Great Recession was beginning to take hold. LECHLEITER grew up in a family who owned a Ford dealership in Louisville, an experience that helped guide him through tough times at Lilly.
Things just don't go in a straight line. There are ups and downs, and whether it's the economy or the fortunes of a given business, when times are good, you've got to say to yourself, maybe they won't be good forever. And when times are bad, you've got to say to yourself, this too shall pass, and we'll get back to a better situation. I think I learned that from the automobile business.
A candid conversation with the former head of Eli Lilly and Company, John LECHLEITER, on the next edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. You can check it out beginning Monday at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Coming up next, a new remedy to address the critical nursing shortage in Indiana. See how connecting with patients virtually is making a big difference in health care.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can.
Okay, I just need to go over some admission questions with you.
Okay.
She's a virtual nurse, easing the workload for her in-person counterpart in the hospital room. A new game plan that could help deal with the nursing shortage. Community Health Network says it's the first health system in central Indiana to roll out this new approach to complement bedside nursing. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta here now with more. Kylie.
Well, thank you, Gary. Community Health describes virtual nursing as a partnership between the bedside nurse and the virtual nurse that appears on the TV screen in the patient's hospital room. Community says the virtual nurse takes care of all the tasks that don't require hands-on care, which eases the workload for the in-person nurse and frees up him or her to focus on hands-on care. Community has rolled out the new model at 3 of its 4 major hospitals in central Indiana. The virtual nurse is a registered nurse located out of state, but can immediately connect with the on-site bedside nurse at any moment. Community says the bedside nurses are welcoming the change because it allows them to be more present for hands-on care, which for many is the joy in the nursing profession. Community Health Director of Acute Care, Missy Simpson, says the nursing shortage existed before the pandemic, but COVID exacerbated the issue.
We are faced with staffing challenges like we've never been before, and I think nursing leadership all across the country has to look differently. We have to look at our models of care and what makes the most sense. We have to use everybody to the top of their scope of practice, and so even our school nursing and how can we use it there. So I think that we're, starting inpatient is the first step, but I think eventually we're going to see this grow across the country in all areas of nursing.
Community says the virtual nurse is onboarded as a community employee with the same training as the bedside nurses for the tasks they complete remotely. Community plans to expand the virtual nursing model across the network. New research from the University of Notre Dame shows for the first time that the sourcing strategy chosen by hospitals impacts the quality of patient care. Electronic medical records, digital versions of paper charts collected by and used for healthcare providers, can be shared across healthcare settings and allows providers to document and monitor patient care. With multi-sourcing strategies, the exchange of data might not share the same meaning and impact the quality of care provided. Associate Professor of Business Analytics in the Mendoza College of Business, Caitlin Wowick, says when hospitals use a single sourcing strategy instead of using multiple suppliers, patients receive better evidence-based care.
When you have different components from different suppliers, even small things like how key medical concepts or data fields are defined can differ, which impacts the exchange of data between these two components. During the research, we discovered even minor things like allergies can be defined differently between components from different suppliers, which impacts quality care provided to the patient. And even though there's efforts to help translate these key concepts between components that are sourced from different suppliers, they are often imprecise and error-prone, which impacts performance quality.
Wowick says since hospital performance can often mean life or death for patients, researchers hope this study will help lay the foundation for future research on the relationship between health IT, sourcing decisions, and hospital performance.
You talk about the Great Resignation. It really hit the healthcare industry hard.
For nurses, both professionally and personally, a lot of stress. Kids had to come home, they had to teach, still had to work.
Yeah, great report. Thanks, Kylie. It's time now to go inside innovation. Construction is beginning on a new $84 million microelectronics campus in Odin. State and local officials broke ground this week at the Westgate at Crane Technology Park. The Indiana Economic Development Corporation says Westgate 1 will accelerate the reshoring of semiconductor research and manufacturing in the U.S. The campus has already secured commitments from 4 semiconductor companies that plan to invest a total of $300 million in Indiana and create nearly 550 jobs. Big news for Southern Indiana. Indianapolis-based medtech software-as-a-service company GOH Inc. is closed on a $2 million seed investment round. That round led by Indianapolis-based Vision Tech with participation from Boomerang Ventures in Indy and First Leaf Capital in Illinois. GOH's software platform provides scheduling, payroll, billing, analytics, and more for home care agencies, managed care organizations, and others. The company was founded in 2018 by entrepreneurs Doug Rowe and Dylan Vester. From Fort Wayne to Whitestown to the banks of the Ohio, how the growth of e-commerce in Indiana is paying big dividends to companies and Hoosier workers. And coming up in this week's IBJ, why a former state Republican lawmaker is pushing for public health funding. A look at what's driving a shortage of veterinarians in Indianapolis and what's being done to address housing struggles in Whitestown and all of Boone County. Central Indiana becoming a global hub for e-commerce. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more on how the e-commerce trend is reaching all 4 corners of the state.
Is Indiana emerging as a global leader in e-commerce? To get some perspective, joining me is Bryce Carpenter, Senior Vice President at Connexus. Bryce, kind of give us just kind of your take on where Indiana is at in terms of attracting big-time investment from some of these big e-commerce companies.
Indiana has long been a leader in warehousing, distribution, and fulfillment within central Indiana. But what we've seen over the last couple of years is the growth of the e-commerce market throughout all corridors of the state. You look at what's happening in Whitestown, Fort Wayne with some large Amazon investments that have been made, River Ridge Commerce Center in southeastern Indiana, and then even the potential of Evansville emerging as a player. It's really fortified Indiana's leadership within e-commerce and fulfillment and logistics throughout the world.
What is the future of e-commerce here in Indiana?
It's volume and throughput, right? So during the pandemic, obviously, consumer patterns changed. We saw a 40% increase initially in freight movement within the state. Now that's normalized a bit, but there were a lot of patterns that were created. So as Indiana provides sort of unrivaled access to the U.S. population, with 60% of the population within a day's drive, Indiana's continued to be more and more important to the eastern and central markets of the United States.
We're in the throes of the holiday season, which typically means lots of jobs, especially at an Amazon or some of these other distribution centers. The economy is not great right now. What are you seeing in terms of job creation this year?
Those jobs are still available. The demand is still there. But what I would say is we've seen very positive trends with technology adoption and integrating autonomous sorting systems and fulfillment processes into these warehouses that have allowed companies to better balance their workforces, because like you said, there's this annual tradition of thousands and thousands of jobs open, but a lot of those jobs were going unfilled just because of the demand and Indiana's place as such a competitive e-commerce market that the companies have come along and made those investments to really support their people with technology.
What's in the pipeline? Do you see any new developments, new investments coming to the state?
We've still seen, like Shein, that was the most recent announcement, a lot of the investments into northern Indiana with the multi-state partnership on the bridge, better connecting I-69 into Kentucky and really becoming a more pronounced north-south corridor for international trade between Canada and Mexico. I think Evansville is going to be a market that opens up. So Indiana's going to continue to diversify and not just be a central Indiana-focused e-commerce leader.
All right, Mayor Rachel, thank you for that report. Well, the main battle tank used by the U.S. Army is getting an upgrade, and Indiana's workforce will be part of it. The Department of Defense awarding Indianapolis-based Allison Transmission a $51 million contract to improve the Abrams main battle tank, which first entered service in 1980 and remains the Army's primary tank. The DoD says all of the upgrades will be performed at Allison's operation in Indianapolis and wrapped up by the end of next year. Big news this week in Lawrence County at General Motors' Bedford plant. GM announcing plans to invest $45 million to expand production at the casting operation, specifically for electric vehicle drive unit castings. A spokesperson for GM says the investment will be used to retain the plant's nearly 700 employees, but no new jobs will be added. The automaker says it has invested nearly $500 million in its longtime Bedford plant over the past decade. It is time now for Eye on Education, brought to you by PNC Bank. A special honor for University of Southern Indiana President Dr. Ron Rochon, who has been appointed chair-elect of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities Board of Directors. Dr. Rochon will serve a one-year term as chair-elect before taking over as chairman in 2024. Under his leadership, USI has secured more than $124 million in state funding for capital projects and operations. He also led the university's move to NCAA Division I athletics. Well, the oldest zoo in Indiana, Potawatomi in South Bend, one of the many Hoosier experiences you can share with loved ones as a gift for the holidays. Details next in this month's Trendiana. And don't miss Engage Indianapolis on December 6th. Indy C-suite executives, business and community leaders will dive into the big issues and ideas shaping the future of our region. RSVP by November 29th at ibj.com. And you can RSVP for IBJ's CFO of the Year event and meet this year's honorees. It will be Friday, December 9th at the JW Marriott downtown. Register by December 5 at ibj.com. Well, gifting experiences are increasingly a popular way to show your loved ones how much you care. Whether you're shopping for that cool mom who spends every morning perfecting her eyeliner or the insufferable dad trying to lower his handicap. Who better to give us a look at what's trending around Indiana than Yelp's Brittany Smith. Brittany, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
Absolutely. So these are gifts, but gift experiences, so not the traditional physical gift, right?
Exactly. It's a fun new way to support local businesses, a little less clutter around the house, and you can make a memory while you're at it.
Yeah, and I know these businesses around the state of Indiana getting pretty creative. Our first stop this week is here in Indianapolis at the Flower Boys.
Yeah, they're located right there in the Fletcher Place neighborhood, and they are known for their flower arranging classes. So it's a great activity with friends or a unique date night. So you can actually purchase a gift card or go online and see all of their classes. They do everything from sips and stems to centerpieces. A lot of times they're hosting those classes at local distilleries and breweries, so you get a drink while you're at it. And the classes sell out really fast, and they are a blast.
All right, this next one, as we go to South Bend and the Potawatomi Zoo, sounds exciting. Animal encounters.
Yeah, this is really fun, especially if you have someone on your list who, like a kid who loves learning about animals. This gives them the opportunity to get up close with the giraffe, the bison, the sloth, and the rhino. They have 4 different experiences there. You get to meet the folks, the keepers, and have that unique experience and ask questions and really see it in a new light.
I think one of Indiana's great hidden secrets, if you will, are state parks. Some great state parks around Indiana, and there's a year of exploring those venues.
Yeah, this one's a really fun one. If you have someone on your list who loves exploring Mother Nature, getting out in the state, this is their in-holiday gift pack. I'm guilty. I actually purchased this one after the research. It gives you a year membership to all the state parks and an overnight stay at any of the state parks that you want to visit, along with their annual magazine as well. So you can go somewhere like Turkey Run Inn. They have that cozy spot with the fireplace, the pool. You can make a whole weekend of it with their winter hiking. It's a really fun way to enjoy it. And then if you want to top it off, you've got businesses like Homespun on Mass Ave with really fun items like t-shirts, magnets, and stickers from the state parks, and you can make a bundle out of it.
All right, cooking classes, but these are not cooking classes for adults, cooking classes for kids.
Yeah, Sprouts Cooking School. They actually just expanded to have a second location in Zionsville in addition to their Carmel location. They're starting classes as young as ages 3 to 13. And these classes come in a lot of fun themes. So think like Hogwarts Feast or Cooking with Dolls or Oodles of Noodles. They're really fun and interesting classes, and they're always offering different ones on the calendar. And that's fun to get kids exploring in the kitchen.
All right, and our last stop is in Bloomington for coffee lovers, right? Subscription coffee.
Yeah, for HOPSCOTCH coffee. This is the gift that keeps giving. If you have someone who really loves local coffee or cooking their own or roasting their own beans at home, this is a good one. Each month you'll get a delivery of different beans. You can actually select them online, coming from different origins, and the durations can go from 3 months to 12 months. You can pick based on your budget and interest, and it's a really fun roastery right there in Bloomington. As always, a great trip around the state of Indiana, holiday experiences. Brittany Smith, as always, thanks. Happy Thanksgiving. Same to you. Thanks, Gary. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.